What's up, guys? It's Clay. Haven't posted a personal podcast in a while, but I met a gentleman recently here that I have with me that I really enjoy, and he just so happens to be moving away from me. So I wanted to get a podcast on with him while I had the chance, and then when we reconvene later in life, we can do a catch-up episode. But I have Ricky Hassan here. Ricky, how are you, man? Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ricky. I'm super awkward on camera. This is my first time doing a podcast or anything really on camera with format. So, 35 years old. Was born in Houston, Texas in 1987. I grew up mostly in Kissimmee, Florida. My mother gave birth to me in Houston for some reason. And then the family moved to New York. So I have a stepfather and my mother I grew up with mostly. I'm one of five. I'm the second oldest. Long walks on the beach. This talking about yourself always feels a little bit.
Well, I didn't know that. So you grew up predominantly in Florida then?
Yeah.
You'd say your foundational years were in Florida?
Yeah, mostly.
That's cool. What part of Florida?
Kissimmee. It's about 20 minutes south of Orlando.
Okay. That is on the beach? You said long walks on the beach. Is it like a beach town, a party town?
That was a joke. That was me. Like This was like a dating thing. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. 35. I'm a Scorpio. Yeah. I mean, the beach was always accessible. You know, I'm 30 minutes away from the beach in either direction. Central Florida, so near Disney. I don't have an accent of any sort that I can pick up on. Most of the populace I grew up around is Spanish.
Right.
Man, I really feel like asking questions about you, but
no, that's cool. We can get into that. You were in the military. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. Let's fast forward 21 years from 87. I mean, a little bit. It's relative to a sense of like a credible stranger. You know, I'm a credible stranger.
Right.
I've done some things and seen some things, and I'm not in jail or dead. You know.
There you go.
So that says a lot as a human, I think.
So you went into the military right out of high school at 21, you said?
It took about 2 years. I was in college. I went to a community college in Kissimmee for about 2 years.
Yeah.
I studied business administration. I wanted to be a chef, cooking, baking. And then you realize, can we curse here?
Yeah,
cool.
For sure.
That was a gimmick. So yeah, I really struggled with trying to find a sense of purpose with academia, with education, because of a variety of interests and also because of no real sense of direction. You know, it was 2008, housing crisis was happening. I'm 18, 19, and I'm thinking, well, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. You know, like I'm trying to get a business degree. I don't think I can apply that to too many things that make sense outside of being trapped within a job of some sort. The 9 to 5, they call it. You know? Right. And so I went to the military because I couldn't really figure out a consistent way to establish myself as an independent citizen of the country, you know.
Right.
And sure, that was 2008. It was like 15 years ago.
Right.
But not a lot has changed since then. I think the things we're able to access with information is changed.
With that, do you feel like there's a lot of, I mean, obviously they would say misinformation, but do you feel like it's harder to kind of pinpoint what you're looking for in that information from how much there are?
Yeah, everybody wants the damn truth.
Yeah.
You know? I think if there was one news source, right, American News Network, and it's just one media source, and everybody who's a journalist that reports on anything essentially works for this one news source, and they're honest, they're auditable, you know.
Yeah.
They're forthright, you know. We wouldn't really need to sift through all these sources, plus disregard all the fluff that's supposed to be entertainment or just misleading in general.
Right.
We have so much to consider that we don't realize what it's doing to the individual person, having to think about so many things just to discover one truth. That wasn't as big of a deal back then, I've noticed.
Yeah.
As now.
And
we also didn't get the truth back then.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do you feel like there's ever been a time where we have gotten the truth? That's what I was about to get to. Do you feel like there's ever a time where any country has gotten the just straight truth from the media? I don't feel the media has ever been used to just display truth to the citizens.
Yes, I mean, without getting into the philosophy of, well, what is the truth, right? That's stupid. The truth can be defined not by law, but by a dictionary. Mm-hmm. In the English language, truth has a definition. It's already predefined by people who learn to mumble what we use now, you know? And so the truth is something that you have to kind of set aside to look at like you were saying, the purpose of the media at all. What is it supposed to do? Is it doing that? Okay, if not, why? But we can't ask those questions. We don't elect the media.
Right.
You know? We don't really have control over something that's really a corporation. Mm-hmm. But we call it something else, so it gets associated to the mind as being something separate when you consider it in conversation or you consider it in your thoughts. You don't look at it as just being a business, essentially. It is a corporation.
Mm-hmm. And with that, the separation of kind of business and corporation is very tough because we all hate corporations and we love small businesses, but eventually every small business is going to reach a size that it's going to have more influence than maybe just a coffee shop, say, or just an airliner or something.
It should.
Yeah.
You know, a mom and pop bakery having a disagreement with somebody over something social, right? You hear about it in the media. Where somebody doesn't want to make a cake for somebody and decorate it a certain way. Right. So we're arguing about decorations on pastry. Not thinking that we can't really figure out what seems to matter when it comes to our connections. Mm-hmm. When people go to work for a corporation, let's say it's BlackRock. BlackRock isn't made of robots. You don't go in there and see a bunch of robots zooming around, coming up with things to uphold a military-industrial purpose, right? So that should be simple because it's people, right? It's not dogs, right? These are people,
right?
We should be able to go and have a simple conversation like this. So something happens where the people that come together under corporation, right, from the top down, they say, people that come together tend to have beliefs. They have personal beliefs, they have financial beliefs, they have professional beliefs, right? And all of those things don't necessarily go together. That's why we have whistleblower things and whistleblower protections for things. Because people don't always necessarily believe that the thing that is happening at work for money is also good for their personal perspective. It's people. It's a people problem.
It very much is a people problem, and that's where we were talking a little bit earlier. I don't see where in the long term these people have much to gain. Obviously, financially, they do have a lot to gain, but when you own most of the corporations in America as these big private equity firms is what I'm pretty sure that they are at the end of the day, like they do own the majority of the corporations, I just don't see what your family, no kid of yours is ever going to need money, I don't get the power that they're grabbing for will eventually ruin the world for their children. So, and I think they're smart enough to understand that. So then I just question what their end goal is with the tyranny that it seems to be brought on.
So as somebody who's been trained to think about how to defend against anything, right? A physical thing, a psychological thing. You tend to look at people through their worst aspects over time, right? Because optimism is not the hallmark of a good defense, right? So you tend to give everybody kind of a skewed look at things, right? That's fair. But if you take the other side of things and you say, okay, how are things in their best sense? You can also use the best to measure against anything else that's not that. So you bring up good points because you think as a person who's not in that position, right? With the money, with the control or resources, really, or the history. You think about like the world and their children within a world. You're thinking for them, not like them. You see the difference?
Right.
You have to think, do they look at children in a world the same way that you see children in a world? That's really where beliefs start to become muddied: personal, financial, professional, right? I don't think it's fair that a lot of decisions that we make within our government, right? I can be a member of our government. I'm not a felon. I'm of age, right? I can be an elected or an appointed member of our government. So I'm going to speak as if I have that potential. That's fair. Okay. I don't think it's fair that there are so many regulations that do things to affect the life of children, not simply protect the life of children, right? Doctors can attest to what a child needs. For some reason, a person that is a doctor within a group of doctors within medicine, these people have decided that they either become quiet, they become the new voice of change, right? And they start to take all these good ideas and try to implement them. Or they leave and they run away, they quit. There are a few who would like stand up and say, hey, this needs to change, this needs to be a certain way. But it's just people. The future that they measure is different than the future that we measure.
With that, what would you think that they are seeing for their future? What do you think their utopia for humanity would even look like with their direction?
I think a lot of it's depicted in movies already.
Yeah.
I look at anything now that comes through a screen for viewing, and specifically a screen, right? Laptop, cell phone, movie theater, right? A lot of the things that are depicted now, I'll say anything that's depicted now, either has something woven in to influence or persuade the quiet mind, right? The mind that's unaware that something else is taking place in the background. You're downloading something. Movies especially, right? It's depicted in movies. People are trying to go to space. They talk about and show utopian society, stories about utopian society in space. Let's take Elysium, for example. Matt Damon was the main actor in Elysium.
Okay.
The idea is that there's this utopian society in space. The Earth has turned to shit, and so everybody there lives on what is essentially a dry favela that is now Earth. And everybody who could afford to go to space and live on this ring called Elysium, where you can lay in a bed and get healed by devices, right? People on the planet Earth have to win a lottery to go up there to be a part of Elysium. A lottery. Everything's very relative, right? Life persuades onto art. So I think the end game is everything that seems fictional to us because money makes it real to their mind's eye. Does that make sense? And I mean anything good or anything otherwise. You know?
Right.
Yeah. And you have Epstein's Island coming up as a topic of conversation where there's no real information divulged about that, right? You have a lot of things where people who have wealth are somehow able to do things in a way that the rest of us wouldn't even think to do because we're too busy running around trying to get the money to do what we call surviving.
Right.
They're already done with the survival part. You're asking the question, well, what's the point of money when you have so much of it? Like, why? Why does Scrooge McDuck swim in the gold even though you can't quite swim in gold? Why do they show a duck, a cartoon duck with wealth, enjoying the money like a duck would in a pond? Why? To children, they depict this.
Yeah, I
Does
guess.
it look like he's having a bad time?
No, to start the connection.
Yeah,
again.
yeah. It's everything you can see.
Right.
Yeah. And we don't understand what we're doing when we influence each other. You can name the TV show after I say this. I'm going to say 3 words, right? It's almost like a magic trick. Popular TV show. I'm going to say 3 words. Dragons, rape, swords. What show am I talking about?
What is it? Not the Lord of the King of Thrones.
First word, wrong word.
Oh, Lord of Thrones, Game of Thrones.
It took me a while because I don't watch the show.
Yeah, I didn't watch the show either.
But isn't it funny that for somebody who wasn't captivated by the show, wasn't engaged,
Yeah.
with 3 words you can
Still
get.
knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah, that is odd.
Yeah. This is how easy it is to be influenced by the things you're aware of. Just like that.
Yeah.
Now imagine a child's mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's difficult to sit with somebody and isolate them to their real self. We'll get dressed up and put on the suits, right? We'll wash our faces or whatever. And then some of us have another thing we put on that the others can't see. It's the persona. It's something supported by an ego, maybe, right? That's where it gets tricky. Just when you think you might have a person's ear and their perspective, their good perspective, and an open mind, they have to go and practice the thing that you now saw. That seems to be a change of heart or a change of character. You take a politician, you take a businessman who seems to be well-to-do, but we know the truth, right? We can fill in the blank. We're not dumb. And you speak to them, and they seem like they really had a heart-to-heart moment with you. And then it's on them to independently now take the experience and do more with it and water that and grow it when they didn't even know they had a seed in them in the first place.
Right.
Where will that go? Yeah. And that's why law tends to fill in the blanks when we can't answer those questions anymore. So my argument is that because we can't quite make the change we want to, we need to be prepared to take the action we have to, and that's not like a call to violence or to disrupt anything but civil society. It's really about going to law. Yeah. Why is it my phone can tell me as I'm driving through a state line, my device will tell me, hey, you're now in a different state. It doesn't really tell me anything else. Like if I'm hungry, it's not like, hey, you're in a different state, you're hungry, right? It won't tell me that type of change. But it will notify me when I am in another district, precinct, state in the United States. Why? Why that only?
I mean, I'm sure that's what they would like to know where you were at.
When I fly to another country, it doesn't say welcome to Japan.
Right. I would have to guess that it would be that they would like to know or kind of subtly let you know that they know where you're at.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's not for something for me because I didn't ask for it to do that.
Right. They would say it's for your safety if I had to guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that was illegal, it wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
But we're not questioning whether that's legal or not. So nothing happens about it.
Some would still even question on if it's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, some would call you crazy to even think that it was happening.
Some would tell you to just focus on other things because they don't want to think about other things. People want to be so safe within themselves, they'll try to control everything they can outside of them. Yeah. Phones are interesting.
That's very interesting what you just said there about the people that almost want to just act like nothing's happening. And I don't think they really mean to, but sometimes it comes off as insulting.
They mean to.
Do you think they mean to?
Absolutely.
To the people that would be like conspiracy theorists or just people that think a lot differently than they do. How do you think that those people are going to take some of the most obvious things that we can kind of start to see coming out now about the things that they are very passionate about in the past? And then actually, let me enhance on that question. How do we, as the people that kind of saw a lot of stuff happening all along, how do we, instead of saying, I told you so, how do we accept them in? And because there's going to be a lot of therapy needing done, I think, once all of this shit hits the fan. And do we say, let's move forward now. We accept your apology for what you've done. Let's move forward now.
How do we move forward now after everything that's transpired?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's transpired. I mean, just all of the division. Because there's going to be a lot of, I think, at the end of the day, if we ever solve the division problem that the country's facing, there's going to be a lot of apologies that have to be said. Because a lot of people have been called racist. A lot of people have been called libtards. A lot of people have been called a lot of names. And if we are going to move forward together, there's going to have to be a facing of this is the truth, this is what was fake, and we apologize for the things said in the middle.
Yeah.
Let's move forward. How do you think that happens?
Okay. It's within an understanding of the words. I know it seems really simple, right? It's simple enough you can repeat it a couple times. It's within the understanding of the words. Let's take the word conspiracy theory for an example, right? There's no wrong way to use a word, really. The effects are usually what you focus on, you know? So conspiracy theory. Back in the day, conspiracy theorists, according to the state of governance, conspiracy theorists were known by name as Galileo, Aristotle, Plato, Einstein. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because before anything could be put to a formula of understanding, a science, right? They would be rejected from the norm because of their theories, taboo-like theories, right? Things about how gravity works or the shape of the planet. And it would be considered an actual conspiracy against the state because the state at the time was so closely woven to religion, right? So the belief of the state and the belief of the people had a lot to do with a spiritual belief. And once you deviate from that, you know how people can become.
For sure.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, don't argue that the nails should have been made of wood or something, you know, for Jesus. So it's in the word. So it's really a theory. A conspiracy theory is just a theory. Bad luck is still luck. It's just the form of. So it's a theory. We want to call Einstein a conspiracy theorist. And we wouldn't take away praise for his scientific prowess any less either, right? Or any more. So every theory is just a theory. Literally.
For sure.
And the word conspiracy theory is one of those words, a phrase that's used to kind of separate people who think one way and people who aren't thinking, choice of words, are not thinking another way.
Mm-hmm.
And those of us who are thinking the way that we expect them to think, they don't theorize anything.
Right.
That's the difference.
They're just going with what is being told.
Or playing the fool, Columbo style, you know, acting dumb. So it's within the words specifically. When you start a conversation with somebody, and this it touches on education.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Tech check. You have
Sorry
a cord you can run there?
No, because we don't have any plugins or nothing.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's the kicker. It's 20% though. We still got a little bit. They should be closing up to class soon anyway. But what were we just talking about? Going with the people kind of acting dumb about.
Yeah, like so people have to understand what words mean before they can come to a table for conversation. Like when somebody thinks they know what a word means, they might take their assumed meaning and take the message of the speaker and do something else with it. And so then it becomes an argument or a debate instead of just a simple conversation.
Mm-hmm.
A simple conversation can fix a lot. You can speak to a neighbor about a problem if they're reasonable. If you speak the same language, if you understand each other, that makes things very easy. And being able to get to a table for conversation and just speak about the truth, the fact of a matter, that's hard to do when somebody feels as if they're complicit to the life they've lived. Because it's not just about their actions now, it's about how their life is now tied to their actions along with being in a public space or along with being in a space for conversation. Usually when a therapist sits with somebody, they're not like, invite all the people you're uncomfortable with so they can hear you talk about your problems. You know,
Right.
That doesn't happen. So it's somebody, like people are not educated on how to understand themselves within the words they use. When you think about yourself, do you think in another language? Do you think with hums and grunts? No, you think in fucking words. You know what I mean? Like, we don't understand the basis for what we're supposed to be using to think. It's so simple. Because when you realize that you're acting a certain way and it's associated to certain words, and you're like, I've heard these words before, and I don't like those words. Arrogant, right? Prejudice. There are a lot of words that have a connotation to them, so we know, okay, these are problems associated to these words alone. You know, felony, right? These are things that captivate the attention and have certain definitions. People coming to a table to talk about things like water, education, electricity, housing, they have to have a basis for understanding what words you use to speak about a housing problem, what type of things you need to know before you come to a conversation to even listen to a housing problem town hall meeting or something, right? Like,
right.
Everybody, it's such a fucking blanket statement. There's a lot of people that are prepared to do stuff, even listen, But what are they receiving to practice later?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. What words do you have to practice in action? That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
This morning you woke up and got up like you normally do, right?
Definitely.
These are words that you can repeat most mornings.
Definitely.
Wake up, get up. Wake up, get up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a repetition of things. These things are just words in action.
Do you feel with that the access to information, and you could say knowledge that we have from the internet nowadays, is separating us further and further from wisdom? With what you were just kind of saying, where you have to understand the words, and because people can kind of say these buzzwords, but if they're not that familiar with the implications that come behind what you're talking about, maybe, then it becomes a lot easier to just hop into what may be popular or what you may think you should feel like.
It's easy to repeat something you've seen or heard in your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that gets scary because then you have to wonder what percentage of it, if any, of my thoughts are original thoughts.
None.
Yeah.
Because you didn't make up original words for an original language.
Right.
You're kind of doing what we're all unique that way. We're sure we might have a bag of ability, but how we decide to use those connections of understanding, right? Like you understand how your hands work,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's certain things that I'll do with my hands that you might not do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll play a guitar every once in a while. How often do you play?
0.
Right. So that's just an example.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Right.
You work with this equipment, I don't know how to put it together, I'd have a hard time.
Right.
But I play the guitar and that affects my brain a certain way. Right? When somebody doesn't know that they should be trying to teach themselves something a certain way every day, they should be trying to repeat certain things. Or you're not taught that as a kid. You don't find meaning within what you repeat.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few things that I'm assuming, believing that a human kind of needs to have. I'm not speaking like truth to the choir right now, A lot of these things are understood.
Mm-hmm.
But an understanding of how to connect your thoughts to your actions to a purpose, like those two things to a purpose of self at any age, that's what we're lacking from the get-go.
Right.
We're not children that are raised with understanding of purpose. And so that's how information and data have now become more valuable than knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was trying to find the note I took for the podcast, actually, where I was like, that's one of the points I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, good.
Where this position of just having a thing to say or show on a phone is more important than actually understanding the components of what you're presenting to anybody.
Mm-hmm. I struggle a lot with that, and I feel like a lot of people my age do because we've grown up with the full access to all of the information. And I think that's made a lot of people my age believe that we should start at the top, or that we should, I don't know, word that. I think it just is an ego issue. And I think a lot of that stems from the lack of, I guess our need to, you would say, worship or follow or find purpose, I think, with your lack of purpose. And then the kind of our separation of God from God as a country and as a culture. I think that without purpose, or without at least a guide to purpose, which one would find in a Bible or a Quran or some sort of a religious text, I think that without that guide to purpose, that's where we're seeing a lot of the lack of.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has like cultures, separate cultures and families. They have things that are foundational to how they find purpose together, or the expectation of purpose and responsibility with each member of the family. Like the dog is never expected to poop inside.
Mm-hmm.
If the dog can be trained to somehow know that it has to poop, and then notify you somehow by behaving differently within the environment, if the dog's trained to do that so you can take it outside, that's ideal.
Yeah. It's crazy how complex you just made that sound. But
exactly. There's a lot that goes on there, right?
Yeah.
And everybody just talks about it as like, put him in the crate, put his nose in it if he messes up, right? But when you think about what actually has to occur, it's a lot for a dog to do.
Yeah.
That should take some time.
For sure.
Now, that's a dog. Do you think a mother or a father will sit and look at a baby the same way and say, man, you have a lot to learn? Will they look at a dictionary and say, there's so many words in here, you're going to have to know some of these?
Mm-hmm.
Will they look at the stars and say, oh my gosh, you might look at these and ask me questions? I can't wait to tell you about this. I hope you remember.
Right.
You have so much to learn. There's no wonder within children anymore from a parental or societal point of view.
Okay.
When people see each other, we don't feel like, oh my gosh, we're still going, there's still hope. You see somebody pick up trash. You see commercials. Someone picks up trash. Somebody sees it. I'm going to do a good thing. They pull open the door. Somebody sees that, right? That concept is effective, but it's not common. And sure, we help each other out, flat tires and rainy days or whatever, you know?
Right. And it's insane how when you have one of those moments, how that can affect your day or affect your situation. I can be in the absolute worst mood, and sometimes just going and talking to somebody else at like a gas station will flip the script completely. And then you walk out feeling foolish that you walked in so angry.
You shouldn't feel foolish. You're learning something constantly, right?
Yeah.
But once you realize that about yourself, and you find yourself in the next situation, it's going to come up. Nobody likes these, you know? Or however you sound when you're angry. Right?
Pretty close.
Yeah. I've gotten into the habit of when I'm in a situation and I can just call somebody, I will call them and tell them, hey, I'm really upset. And I just want to curse and vent about the situation. Want to listen? And they're like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And that way I don't do that to myself in my thoughts. I don't do that to the situation while trying to fix it. Anybody who's near the situation, anybody who loves me, who would communicate with me while I'm in the situation, right? I've found that it's better to ask for help. And it does take something off of you when you know someone's listening and helping to break down what's going on. They might even give you good advice.
That was really good advice, and it actually connects back to something that my mentor has told me a lot. There's the 5 Ps. One of them is permission. And I think that's kind of what you just hit on there that I've struggled with in the past, and it can be kind of jarring if you don't ask permission to vent. But I think that's a very good point. Just being able to have the energy, I think, from another person in a situation is very useful.
They're good energy, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that we miss, I think, with some of the ways that things are set up right now.
A lot of us become so busy chasing the thing we think we need to survive. But to your point real quick about permission, right? If I was a therapist, let's pretend I'm qualified to be a therapist or whatever. I don't know. Let's pretend that you can break down permission into 2 parts. The first thing I've realized in studying the mind and studying therapy or studying like wellness, I'll say, is that if you don't start with you, you're wrong. Not wrong bad, wrong as in like you're playing a game in life and you're just moving the wrong piece first, you know? Sometimes you have to roll the dice before you move. You don't realize you have to do the easier part, which is to give yourself permission to do the right thing for yourself. And for me, being so used to the expectation professionally or personally in relationships at work as a Marine, the expectation of being responsible and being an independent thinker, an independent performer, it does make you want to manage every aspect of life in the same way, independently. When the truth is, you're supposed to kind of go outside yourself to connect with something, right? Whether it's the wind, you're breathing in the air, whether it's a glass of water, maybe you need to take a nap and connect your face to a pillow. I don't know, but there's something that you're supposed to do with the energy of the emotion of a situation. And as people age and grow up and they have success and they get resources in life, right? They might misunderstand how to utilize the energy of any emotion because now you have a bubble that's insulated with money. It's very comfortable, right? To humanize a CEO, for example, right? They might just have a moment where they don't manage any of their energy properly.
Hang on.
Speaking of energy,
We are running low, so let's finish It's just what were you saying? The CEO managing his energy.
Yeah, like if we should want to be aware of the repercussions of our actions. We should want to be aware so that we understand dragon, so that we understand what's really happening fully from our behavior, our thoughts, our impact outward towards other people. Somebody would feel bad if they knew that their actions hurt another person, right? They may say they feel bad. But when you realize that if you shield yourself from thinking about how somebody's affected, right, by your actions, and you only focus on the benefit as it pertains to you, like as a person, you become blind. Like they call it willful blindness, where you become blind to aspects that you can absolutely relate to because it doesn't benefit your position as a person.
Right.
And that's a mismanagement of the idea of how you should take care of yourself or how you should consider other people. There's energy in that. It takes energy to ignore a homeless person. You are actively engaged in the activity of ignoring.
It definitely
You get
does.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
It takes something to give no regard to something. But because you have so much resource available to you, you can feed yourself with other things. So you don't feel that loss of energy. You don't feel that loss of self.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that could answer a lot of the questions of why these CEOs make some of the decisions that they do to maybe sell their company to one of the big equity firms or to do some decision that causes child slavery in another country.
Yeah.
Is exactly that.
Nobody wants to buy a property with the view of the homeless of the city they're going to live in. Nobody ever does that. Oprah's not like, give me a view of regular people. Nobody does that.
Right.
They want a view of the thing that they think they should be looking at all times. From the yacht, you're not going to see people drowning who are trying to swim into this country.
Yeah.
You know, depending on where you have it docked. Yeah.
That's good. Well, you want to wrap up on that? That was a really good, I think, way to kind of full circle us there.
Yeah, these podcasts and the conversations that should be had, it should be palatable. You know, you might look at the phone dying as like a thing that's like problematic, maybe.
Right.
I think it could be instrumental too.
For sure.
To keep it short and sweet.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree, and we'll try and cut some like in any of the me hopping around and dead time that we had. But I think we had a good conversation. You guys let us know if we had a good conversation. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I'm glad to continue to post more. I haven't posted in a while.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll do this again.
Absolutely.
Let's not die.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
38 minutes.